Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to All Things Division III Soccer with Simple Coach and Chappie. I am Simple Coach, and that there is... I know, it's been a while since Jackie left us, but this is the first year that I have started the season without her. So, yeah, bummer. Anyhow, hey, I know chaos rules the world these days, so I'm hoping the next few moments you will find some peace and freedom with the latest coming out of Simple Coach HQ. Hey, season's upon us. I am recording this on August 10th. That is 8 days away from most start dates for Division III programs, and figured I would get a jump on something that I've been thinking about for a while, and that is the men's top 25. Yes, it is a preseason top 25. No, it doesn't math. No, it doesn't look at like where you ended up last season. It kind of does, but it doesn't automatically guarantee you that same spot. Yes, I've been known to drop national champions down to the 10th place. It is what it is. But this time around, it's going to be interesting, as it always is. So, with that, let us begin. Okay, but before I do, because, that's me, I do things my own way. Before I get to the top 25, I did want to mention and shout out to some schools that didn't make the top 25, but kind of sort of on my radar for what's probably obvious reasons, right? They made names for themselves to one degree or another, and I'm just looking. There's not a reason why they're not on the top 25 other than there was no room in the top 25 for them. So really, I'll just say kind of bubble-like teams right now. Again, just sort of based on my assessment of how they played throughout the year and then how they ended up in the postseason. So, one that I just continue to look at, and maybe this is a year where they really returned, 13-3-5, North Park. They are ranked, if you look at the Massey ratings, they are ranked, so that's strength of schedule and all that kind of stuff, and wins, and it's a little mathematical. They're 22nd, but they always have a great stable of players, a good number of real quality internationals. So they're on my radar, just as the 16-2-3 Gustavus Adolphus. Yes, and they were 11th, or they are 11th in the Massey ratings. But I think there's some questions to be asked about the team players that they bring in. I'm not saying that they're not worthy, but I have some questions. So next up, 13-3-5, Pacific Lutheran. There's a team out west that I think we should be aware of. They've had a consistently really good run, and maybe this was a year where they really amp it up. Just like Hope at 14-3-3, I do think this is a team to keep an eye on, and I think the Flying Dutchmen are a team to reckon with, and it's just a matter of hitting their stride early and maintaining it throughout the season. Two others that are nearby to me that I think we need to really be aware of. First of all, just because 10-3-7, Franklin and Marshall. If they could dispel some of the ties with wins, then they are definitely going to be in the top 25. They are consistently one of the top 25 teams. I just think they need something to push them over the line and get the actual wins. Another one, 9-4-4, Montclair State. They I think they need to find answers to some of the key players that they've lost over the last year. And how do they, I don't want to say rebuild because it's not necessarily a program that rebuilds. They just kind of reload. But I do think they need some answers, especially when it comes to goal production and sentencing teams. I'll throw out, because they're a big incognito for me right now, John Carroll University, moving to the NCAC, OAC stalwart, right? Like they are dominant. They're moving to the NCAC, which leads to a whole other set of questions, but very, very interesting. I think if the ball bounces right, they could easily be top 20 material, top 15 material. So last one that's on my radar, and I'm just saying because it's a case of they're kind of newish to the block, so I always, especially when it comes to college soccer Division III, like 1 year flash in the pants outright success the way they had it last year doesn't necessarily guarantee a follow-up year. So I'm really interested, but I have Buffalo State on my radar. Again, not in my mind what I would consider a top 25 team, but total potential to do so based on their performance last year. Can they keep it going? Do they have the manpower? I think that's definitely a question that is left to be answered. So with that, let us begin with the top 25 preseason, right? This is, again, no games have been played. So here we go. Let's start with number 25. And let's stay in my home state, the Garden State, New Jersey. I think the NJAC team of the year will be Rowan at 12-5-5. That's not much of a surprise. But I kind of have this inkling about them this year for some reason. They're obviously, again, favorites in the NJAC. I do think they'll have a pretty robust senior class, including, two outstanding ball players, Captain Ryan Cleary, and then their leading scorer, All-American Johnny Triano. So I just think they'll be drivers of what Rowan does this year. Another team, again, I'm expecting a little bit of a breakout for them. Occidental at 24, 9-3-6. They have, a little bit I know, they have some quality transfers coming in from McAllister and St. Olaf that could have a pretty immediate impact. And that's a question of, do they? And is this the year where it sort of molds together and that they're able to? Again, I look at 9-3-6 ties. Can they, get some more wins under their belt? This team at 23 really has me wondering what will happen. I do think they will be good. And that is the Battling Bishops of Ohio Wesleyan at 23rd. They were 12-5-3 this year. They will look very different, I think, this year than in past years. If you remember, legendary coach Jay Martin has retired, and now the reins are in the hands of former assistant Matt Weiss. You might want to check out the interview of him that I had just a month ago. I do expect them, like they always do, to compete in what's going to be a crazy NCAC. Like, let's be real. I think it's probably going to be one of the most competitive conferences in the States. Next up at 22, Wisconsin Platteville, the Pioneers. They'll totally compete again for the WIAC. Although Eau Claire did have their number last year, including knocking them out of the NCAAs, but they lost to them all 3 times. But I think maybe this is Platteville's year. They do lose a large senior class, but the one thing I look at is that 3 of their 5th biggest point getters, so goals and assists, return in 2025. And then under the leadership of Purple Raider, Mount Union alum, Jesse Tinney, I think we'll see some things out of Platteville this year. Next up at 21, and at 13-4-4 last year, Johns Hopkins. They do lose a lot. There's a lot of change at Hopkins for this year. Ian Wayman, Francis Meyer, Aiden Dunphy, they're all gone. So the team will be different. But quite frankly, I suspect they will be fine. Over the last few years, they've always been a team that scores by committee. And so I sort of expect there to be, again, just their playing style. I would expect them to, goals come from any number of places, not just one guy up top. So, and then at 20, at 14-4-4, repping the OAC, Ohio Northern. I think the team has a lot of quality in spite of losing a very seasoned class that I think there's going to be holes that need to be filled. But I do think Coach Matejka and staff have done a really good job of filling the roster with who can step into the breach. I will say their first weekend is away at Mary Washington and away at Randolph-Macon. And realizing it's early and realizing there can be total turnarounds and that sort of thing. But I think the way they play will be very telling, and how those results end up will be very telling. So. All right, so that was a pretty interesting first, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Now let's go to number 19. In 19th, my pick for the preseason poll at 15-4-5. Again, one of my favorites. Great coach, great program. One of the public schools that I keep saying has the wherewithal to win a national championship, and that's Cortland State. I will say this year there's a big question mark. If you watch the interview I had with Coach Axtell a month ago, there's a lot of questions even in his mind. Lost a very impactful, very large class. They do tend to bring in good freshman class, but really good transfers. That if they land the right type of players that do step into some of those roles, they'll have will have an impact, and then you'll see it for Cortland State. So at 18, 19-2-2. Yes, I'm being very harsh. University of Mary Washington. Massey has them at 4, so strength of schedule type thing. The NCAA ended their ranking. They were 9th. But they lost a lot to graduation. 18 total players, if I did my math correctly. So in relative terms, they will be a young squad, but I do think they will be playing without the amount of pressure that I think was on them for 2024. Like, I think there was an expectation that Mary Washington was going to run the board to a certain extent. I don't think that's the case this year. They lose, their outstanding forward Carter Berg and then goalkeeper Freddie Rogers. But they do have a great depth. And the question is, can they put it together? I actually hope I'll be making it out there this year to watch a game or two. So be on the lookout out, and then you could yell at me for putting them at 18th. At 17, 4 and 4. Again, maybe a little harsh. Washington and Lee, they were semifinalists last year. And they're going to have to fill some big shoes. They lose Asa Tuck, PJ Ryan, and then their leading scorer, Wayime Agbayegbe, to graduation. So I think their junior class is going to be key for leadership. So they'll definitely need to step up. At 16, yes, 18, 2 and 4. Wisconsin Eau Claire. I don't think they necessarily rebuild, but I think this is the closest that it seems to me that they're going to be rebuilding. They're graduating 11 players, including their midfield general Carter Teifeld, and All-American and National Player of the Year Nathan Donovan. So you do have to ask where the goals and the goal creations are going to come from. But I suspect that there's, again, they have a pipeline of players. They haven't been, this isn't a flash in a pan program, so I would suspect that they'll keep rolling along. Number 15, 6 and 1, Messiah. Yeah, at 15. I may be overly generous. Like Massey has him at 20. NCAA ranked him at 25. I think the average. So I think they, again. But I will say this team does have me a little bit confused. Will they be dominant in conference? Of course they will. Will they be good? Of course they will. They do play some humdingers this season, so my eyes are going to be on the Marshmallow Bowl on the 17th against E-Town. No, I'm just kidding. That's going to be a fun match. If you get a chance to get out to Grantham, you should definitely go check it out. The video of it last year was awesome, where they just chuck marshmallows. So, no, but in all seriousness, I think their preseason schedule is as challenging as most really good teams have. So the question is where they end up in that after that stretch of 7 games or 8, whatever it is, 6 games, 8 games, to see how serious they are. Like last year, they kind of struggled through that until they got to conference. So maybe I'm looking for a little bit more consistency here. So we'll see. Number 14, they were 15, 5 and 3 last year. St. Olaf. They do lose their. I'm a huge fan. Shea Bechtel, All-American and MIAC's Offensive Player of the Year. Still think the team has legs. It's relatively young. I think they'll repeat as MIAC champ. And I could be a surprise stalker in the NCAAs. So at 13, 19, 4 and 2, Wisconsin Superior. The Wisconsin schools, there's 3 of them. I mean, that's why my fascination with the Midwest and Wisconsin soccer I always talk about, because it just amazes me that I don't talk much about them, but man, there's a lot of great soccer being played there. So they made the Sweet 16 last year, losing to the eventual champs in OT. That could have gone either way. They do lose some key pieces, but they look to they're reloading their squad, especially with Jake Kidd, who scored 24 goals last year, and Freddie Watson, who scored 11, and they're back for their senior years. And so I expect them to repeat as UMAC champs. and they do have a strong pre-conference schedule. But so I think we're going to know a lot more after that first month of September. So at 12, 17, 4-3, and I'm going to be honest. I consider this an overly generous standing. Is for the Dickinson Red Devils. Don't get me wrong, they had a great year in 2024. It's just a question of momentum. Like, is this a one-off year, or, are they just going to be good? They do lose. They did have a really big, impactful graduating class, but they still have rising seniors, All-American Saul Iwowo and Ethan Jardin, and rising sophomores, Nicholas Duema and Timmy Omoniwa. The two of those combined for 21 goals, and Iwowo was the Centennial Conference Player of the Year. So they're definitely loaded. The question is, can they consistently win over the years? This might be overly generous as well, but I'm a big fan. At 14-4-2 in 11th is Vassar. I think this year they can come into their own, in spite of losing defender Charlie Rodhouse and forward Duncan Keller. Jared Fisk will end up leading the team. So I do expect them to retake the Liberty and make a run at the NCAAs. I do think they could be a Final Four team if everything sort of falls their way. Okay, number 10. Last year, 14-4-3. I'm going with Kenyon. The Lords. And yes, that is a hill I am willing to die on. Graduated a pretty large and impactful senior class. All-American Matt Nguyen and Iman Dujokovic. I do think the program is starting to take shape the way Coach Wall has it in his mind. The NCAC, like I mentioned earlier, right? I'm calling Ohio Wesleyan. I mentioned John Carroll coming in. Kenyon is going to have a pretty big handful, whatever. That's a terrible analogy. Competing for the NCAC. I do think that they're going to have to make Gambier pretty much a fortress. And I will say, they have a pretty crazy schedule. They've obviously Ohio Wesleyan and John Carroll, that they play Case, they play Hopkins, and they play Franklin and Marshall at home. So I think they're really going to have to show something there. So. At number 9, 16-3-3, Western team, SCAC, I think another top contender for the SCAC, Colorado College. They had a remarkable season, came up short in both the conference and losing in conference tournament, and then losing in the second round in the NCAAs. But I do think this is a program worthy of our attention, and I think, again, I keep waiting. There's a couple teams in my mind that I think really are poised to really make an impact on this year, or at some point. So I think they're one of them. Again, another Western team at 8. They were 19-1-3, and I think really keep them. Again, they always are, but just wait for that. Right, they waiting for that right ball to bounce. In 8th, Trinity from Texas, not Connecticut. I think they got demoted to Division IV. They're another team that, again, I just sort of keep an eye on. I expect them to be really good, but they need that breakthrough moment. They lost to Babson in the third round. I do think, like, yeah, playing out of the West is really difficult. Don't get me wrong. I totally understand that. But it's a challenge they need to manage, and it can't be an excuse. So, um, Trinity, Colorado, Claremont Mud Scripps, right, which I'll talk about. I think these are teams that they just have to deal with the challenge that it is coming to the East Coast and playing up in at Middlebury in the frigid temperatures. Sorry, get over it. You got to deal with it. So, with that, speaking of, in seventh at 17-2-6 last year, I have Babson. Now, they have a pretty tough start to the season. They play against Occidental, then they do UMass Boston, and then Wesleyan. They had a really good 2024. I do think they'll need to take care of business in the NUMAC. Obviously, they're going to have MIT and WPI nipping at their heels, but I do think that they can do it. They're that solid. So, speaking of Middlebury, number 6, 18-2-3 is Middlebury. They were a national contender in 2024, falling in the semis to the Mammoths of Amherst. They have some key losses to graduation, including All-American New England Player of the Year Luke Madden. They do have a strong rising senior class, including NESCAC Rookie of the Year Keegan Harder, who will be a sophomore. So I do expect them to sort of be where they are. That's my expectation. Whether they deliver, we'll see. Which leads me to number 5, another Western team, and I've been eyeing these guys. If you recall, they had a few years ago, they had some issues that they had to deal with. And since then, they've quietly sort of winning. And at 15-4-3, number 5, Claremont Mud Scripps. They lost to Middlebury in the round of 16. Again, coming from the West cannot be an excuse anymore. We'll see. We'll see if this rank is warranted, right? Like their first 2 weekends, they face Trinity and Southwestern in Texas, in Tejas, and then they fly to Pennsylvania to face Messiah, which will be very, very interesting, and then Gettysburg, right? And those are the type of games, if they're as good as I think they can be, they need to take care of, or figure out a way to end up at least with I'll say at least in Pennsylvania they need a tie against Messiah. So we'll see. At number 4, 12-1-5, this should surprise no one, and I actually think this could be a big year for them. The Jumbos of Tufts at number 4. They have a great freshman class and are returning some key pieces. But I think most importantly, I think the pressure may be off of them. Again, another team where I thought the expectation was very, very high last year for a whole host of reasons, the players, seniors, that stuff. I'm not sure it's there anymore, so I would keep an eye. Again, they will be good. They will definitely compete for the NESCAC along with the rest of the crew. NESCAC's not going to be easy. So we'll see how they hold up. Last year, this team was 15-2-6. This might be generous, but I am feeling it. And that's at number 3, Denison University. Coach Bianco took over 6 years ago, and every year they have gotten better in terms of record, in terms of how they play. And I really think that they might be a team that sort of lives in the rarefied air and is comfortable with it. They lost to Connecticut College in the Elite Eight, and that game could have gone either way, and it could have gone their way. And like I mentioned earlier, around the NCAC, they'll definitely be a top contender for a very, very difficult NCAC. And remember, in the NCAC, only 4 teams qualify, so it's going to be a downright battle every game. Okay. So this should come at no surprise. Although I did have some debate about this one, because the last time they reached these heights, the following year, they kind of had I'll just say a collapse. That's when the year after they won the national championship. I think they might have righted the ship a little bit in that regard, and I think there is a little bit of a hunger now, especially that they made the final last year and lost. At 15-3-6, Connecticut College. Again, finalists last year. They won the NESCAC tournament. I think they lose some really, really big pieces. And so I think that's my only part where I'm like, do they have the bench to fill? They're losing Peter Sylvester, goalkeeper extraordinaire, Sam Boehm, Alessandro Horvath-Diano, and All-American Matt Scafone. All those guys graduate and go on to bigger and better. But I think there's lessons learned, and I think Connecticut might have the hunger as a result of losing to Amherst last year, which leaves me to number 1. Yes, 17-3, Amherst. And you're probably like, no surprise. This should be no surprise. Well, it surprised me that I would keep them at number 1. Again, they won the national championship, but where are they now? They do lose a good number of key players in that squad that won it last year to graduation. Amherst does reload. And from what I understand, again, this is me talking to people, they have a pretty impressive incoming class, including a few internationals that really, really can make a difference in terms of how they play. So I guess my point is the reason why they're number 1 is because the things I'm hearing out of or from about Amherst is pretty scary if you're, another NESCAC team. So, they're going to have to, I think they're going to have to prove me wrong, prove their ranking wrong this year. Kind of like WashU did. I said last year, WashU on the women's side for 2024, I basically had them at number 1 for the whole season. I kept saying, prove me that you don't belong there. And I think this is going to be the case with Amherst this year. And then I would throw out, lastly, that, of all things, my niece will be a Mammoth this year, incoming freshman, and she will be running track for them this fall. So I will, do I have to root for the Mammoths? Well, maybe on the track and field side. So I still expect greater things from my Purple Raiders in track and field. So anyhow, so that's it. That's the top 25. All right. So that's the 2025 men's top 25 preseason poll. Like I said, we're a couple of weeks away from the first games, but thought it would be interesting to get a jump on them. Just for future reference, some things that I have on the docket. I do plan on doing a women's top 25 here in the next, I'm hoping, week. It's we'll see. It might have to go in a little bit into preseason, but I'm going to make effort to do a preseason women's ranking. Um, I am looking to, or at least we've had a little bit of a brief conversation. We will be doing the EJ weekly pool again. So if you're looking to participate, you're going to want to go over to D3 Soccer Boards and check it out. You can get a link on d3soccer.fans. You can find the link there just to get involved and participate. It is fun, it is interesting, and it is challenging, and I'm terrible at it. So you'll at least beat me. I am looking to do a round table, I guess you could call it, getting a couple coaches on at the same time and just sort of doing some banter back and forth. Think of it as a cross between like Piers Morgan and Jerry Springer. So I'm hoping it does come to blows, but who knows? We're virtual, so nobody's going to get really hurt. We shall see. I am working on something that might be interesting as well. I am going to try to revive a top 25 coaches poll. I'm kind of working on the technology where I can and seeing if we can't do it this year where coaches will vote for the top 25. So I know this is something that was going on with the old d3soccer.com. Yeah, I just want to make sure that I could do it with minimal effort and it'll, we'll be able to aggregate things. I don't want to have to do math and all that kind of stuff while I'm waiting for it. So we'll see there. And I think I was thinking of one other thing that I wanted to say, and I can't remember. So on that note, I hope to see you all soon. I will, if you have any ideas for shows or things you want to comment, by all means, please down below. Let me know how you think about the rankings. We'll see. They're mine. They're not anyone else's. So if you have a better idea, by all means, let me know. And we'll talk soon.